The Batteries Included podcast is brought to you with United Chargers and their Grizzly range. The next generation of Grizzly is here. Meet the Grizzly Ultimate, the most powerful AC Level 2 charger for home use. With a maximum current of 80 amps, that's 19.2 kilowatts. Your vehicle could be charged up to twice as fast as a standard Level 2 and up to 15 times faster than a Level 1. And of course, it's Wi-Fi connected, so you can take control of your home charging, view stats, set a charging schedule, take part in demand response programs, and control your charger remotely. And that joins the lineup alongside the original Grizzly Classic. The Grizzly Duo, designed to charge two vehicles at the same time. The Grizzly Mini, a portable charging station. And the Grizzly Smart, a revolutionary smart EV charger. Those chargers can adjust the current from 16 amps up to 40 amps, that's 9.6 kilowatts. Plus, the Grizzly Ranger IP67 rated, built in Canada, and with the highest quality materials. You can order yours right now. Go to unitedchargers.com, that's unitedchargers.com. Well, hello and welcome to the podcast. It is Friday, May the 2nd, 2025, episode 86. We are Batteries Included, and today we'll be talking about Tesla's Semi and Megachargers, the UL-certified Amphenol NACS to CCS1 adapter, and this news about Tesla looking for a replacement for Elon Musk, and of course, much, much more. I'm your host, Martin Lee, for the EV News Daily podcast. Joining us today is the incomparable Mr. Tom Malogany, senior editor at Inside EVs and host of the YouTube channel State of Charge. We also have Dominic Ionna, longtime EV journalist and host of the YouTube channel Drive Electric with Dominic. So loads of good stuff to get into this week. But first of all, Tom, you told us a bit about the Amphenol J3400 NACS NACS to CCS1 adapter last week. Now, in the last 7 days, your in-depth video has dropped with an interview with Mariano Rigotti, business developer for Amphenol. And it's kind of a big deal because it is UL safety certified, which people don't realize is a really big deal. Some people just go on, what's the cheapest thing I can get on, my favorite online shopping platform? But this is a big deal. Tom, can you tell us a little bit more about why that is?
Sure. Yeah. And, to your point about people saying, what's the cheapest one I can get online? I think a lot of people have the opinion of, well, if they're selling it, it must be safe. They wouldn't let them sell it if it wasn't safe. I have to admit, I had that opinion when I was younger too. Well, if this is available, it's in a store or online, it has to be safe because, there's somebody out there making sure that we can't buy things that aren't safe. Well, that's not the case. I could, make stuff in my garage and put it online and sell it. In any event, this is the first safety certified adapter. This is made by Amphenol. And the interesting thing about that is, I bet most people haven't even heard about Amphenol. And they're a huge company. It's like, you ever hear somebody say it's the largest company you've never heard of. And that's kind of Amphenol with regards to connectors, cables. They make some of the best CCS1 connectors that are used on various networks. They make the new J3400, or people call it the NACS connector, that, let's say, Ionna is using on their Alpatronic HYC400s. So this is a huge company that's been around for decades and decades, making military-grade electronics, components, and all that stuff. If you've charged your EV on a DC fast charger, you've probably used Amphenol products in the charger. But they don't. The interesting thing is they don't make they don't make products for consumers. They're always B2B. That's why you've never heard of them, because if you ran a big company that made some sort of electronics, you'd know who Amphenol is. So this is going to be their first product that they actually go directly to consumer. And it's funny, if you watch the video, I joked to Mariano and said, why the hell would you want to do that? Because it's such a different paradigm when you sell directly to the public, as opposed to when you're dealing with, directly with companies where there's one person in charge of, tens of millions of dollars worth of orders, and you deal with that person if there's a problem, if something needs to change or whatever, as opposed to selling having tens of thousands of customers, each one could potentially have an issue with this or that, or you misused it, or wants a warranty claim. So I thought it was pretty funny that, they're deciding to do this. And I asked them about the fact that, well, why now? Why are they bringing it to market now? These have been available for a year. You guys could have been selling it for a while. You have such a big company. They could have been the first one to market to even make one. But the answer was really simple. We wouldn't sell one until we could sell one that was safety certified. And you couldn't sell a safety certified electric vehicle charging adapter until March of this year, because there was no safety certification process. There was no established protocol that the nationally recognized testing labs, and there's a few of them, ETL, CSA, UL, there's a few of them out there that are well known, that I consider, if it gets their certification, it's on the same par. But there was no standard. But UL finally published and finished their standard in March. And Amphenol was the first company to get it approved. They had CSA follow the UL testing protocol, and they did it in the CSA labs. And I know that the other companies, the big companies we've talked about here, like A to Z, Electron, there's other companies also. I know that those companies have their adapters being tested now. And the interesting thing is, well, how did they get theirs done first and the other companies didn't? And I think it has something to do with the amp rating. And we talked a lot about 500 amp ratings. Like, we need 500 amp rated adapters. And all the companies that came out, Tesla, with the Tesla adapter, the A to Z, Electron, a whole bunch of the other companies, some of which are very unsafe, they all have 500 amps, 1,000 volts stamped on the adapter, except for Kia. Kia came out with one that said rated for 350 amps. And I have to admit, I was one of the people that criticized them, said, this is ridiculous. The industry's making 500 amp apps. You shouldn't be selling one or giving one free to your customers that's rated for 350 amps when there's a lot of other EVs that'll pull 500 amps, and people aren't going to know, well, this is a 500 amp EV, and Kia's vehicles pull lower amperage because their voltage of the battery packs are 800 volts, so they could pull under 350 amps without a problem. So, and I know I'm getting in the weeds here, but this is important, and I know a lot of people are confused about it. So Amphenol rated it at 300, it got it rated at 380 amps. And I wanted to bring Mariano on to discuss why that is, because this is important. So the way the UL 2252 standard protocol requires the testing is for you to test the adapters with a dry cable, not a wet cable, not a liquid cooled cable, which is what most of these high-powered DC fast chargers have today, liquid-cooled cables. Well, what does liquid cooling do? It keeps the cable and the connector's head cool. If the connector's head is cool, the adapter will remain cooler where it mates. But if the connector gets hotter and hotter and hotter because it's a dry cable, this area of the adapter is going to get much hotter, and it's going to exceed UL temperature limits with what they do. Okay, so the UL protocol requires them to use a dry cable. And with that, Amphenol said that, Mariano explained, you're not going to get 500 amp rated charging adapters. Maybe by nobody. He doesn't think it's possible without having an extraordinarily complicated adapter expense. And I've heard this from some of the other companies that I'm not going to name that I named earlier, but I don't want to call specific cable companies out, that said, look, we're not happy with the testing protocol because all these chargers have liquid cooled cables. So we should be able to use a liquid cooled cable in our testing so that we can rate it at 500 amps and make people feel better about it, but they're not allowed to. So my guess is that as these adapters come to market certified, you're not going to see 500 amp rated certified adapters. Does that mean they can't charge cars at 500 amps? No, it doesn't. Because all these adapters, I mean, I saw engineering reports on the A to Z Typhoon Pro where it was tested for, an hour continuously at 500 amps, and it didn't exceed UL temperature ratings, but it was with a liquid cooled cable. You have that a dry cable, now the connector gets so hot, and we know that these connectors get hot remember the wet rag gate with Tesla superchargers? People would wrap the connector with wet rags to keep them cool. Well, that's because these connectors get hot when you're pulling a constant, and Tesla vehicles pull very high amperage because their battery packs are lower voltage than some of the other EVs. So in any event, I know I'm going on and on about this, but this is really important because as we see safety certified adapters come out, I don't think we're going to see 500 amp rated safety certified adapters, but the adapters are still going to be able to handle 500 amps for quite a long period of time, 10, 15, 20 minutes, and still maintain the UL's temperature rating. If they don't, they have the good ones like the A to Z, like Electron, like Amphenol. There's temperature sensors in there that will drop your current down to cool the adapter off. So, a couple of things here. This is a great, super high quality adapter. It's the first adapter that's safety certified. I don't want people to look at it and say, yeah, but it's only 300 rated for 380 amps. My EV pulls 500 amps. This can pull 500 amps safely for as long as your electric vehicle is going to. It can't do it to the UL 2252 standard because they forced the testing facility to use a dry cable. And I know I went on and on about that, but
no, but this is interesting. So the adapters themselves are not smart devices. They don't regulate voltage. They don't regulate the current in terms of, they don't convert anything. What they convert is one form factor to another form factor. So they're just the two different plug factors. My question regarding safety is, if you had a vehicle and a charger and it could deliver 800 amps, for instance, and you wanted to exceed that, and this is all hypothetical at the moment, in the reputable devices and the reputable adapters, are there safety cutoffs, things that would stop the device being just simply melting if you put too much through it? Now, this might be all academic because there aren't the cars and there aren't the chargers out there in the wild at the minute that could probably melt one of these. But if you're thinking about going into the future and having these kicking around in the, in your garage for 10 years, then you dig it out and you happen to use it. In the reputable ones, are there safeguards, or are we still a little bit in the Wild West?
Yeah, most of the good adapters, the ones that I've talked about, have multiple temperature sensors, and so does the Amphenol inside the unit. So what it'll do is it'll send a signal to the car or the charger to lower its amperage. It's I'm too hot. Just like there's temperature sensors in the connectors and in the charge ports of the cars. So think about it as far as safety goes. You've got this connector this adapter in the middle of a connector in a vehicle. There's temperature sensors in the connector. There's two temperature sensors in the adapter, and there's temperature sensors in the charge port, any of which will reduce current, or if a certain temperature is reached, shut charging off. So the first level it hits this temperature drops current. If the temperature continues to rise and hits another level, shuts the adapter off. So,
right.
The well engineered ones are completely safe. They really are. I don't, that's why I stress, buy one from a company. Right now, I'm saying just buy the safety certified ones. As much as I love the Electron and the A to Z, I've maintained once there's safety certified adapters, only buy them. Right now, this is the only one that's safety certified. So, while I still use my A to Z adapter and my Electron adapter, I need to, stand by my previous words. Once they're safety certified adapters, only buy one that's safety certified. I expect Electron, A to Z, and other companies, Tesla too, to soon have their adapter safety certified. But I think Electron and A to Z are trying to get the highest possible rating they can. They're trying to beat 380, maybe get theirs rated at 400. But I really don't think we're going to get any adapters rated higher than 400 amps. At least that's what I'm hearing. But it doesn't mean you can't pull 500 amps through that thing for 10 or 15 minutes, which not too many EVs can pull 500 amps longer than 7 or 8 minutes before their natural charging curve starts to reduce.
I've got German friends that would look at that and be like, the rule is 380, and it's like, well, you can pull 450, and they'd be like, no, the rule is 380. So it's kind of it's melting my brain a little bit that actually it'll do this, but you can do a little bit more. It is the old thing as well of, people buy a £50,000 car and go, oh, do I get the $500 cable, or I could maybe get the $300 cable and save? Like, come on, just get safety certified, and I'm sure the other ones that are being made, they will be soon. And in terms of
don't forget, Martin, that 380 amp rating is for continuous use. Like you should be able to just run this thing forever at that. And that's why you're saying, well, 380 is the limit. That doesn't mean that it can't safely run at a higher amperage for a short period of time, and they can.
Yeah. Just talking about testing with dry and wet cables, Chitterkunk Powell makes a great comment here. As we've seen, liquid cooling on cable can fail, so dry testing probably is the safest option. And we saw that in our out of spec across the country electric pickup truck adventure from last year. We came up to a cable. I mean, the liquid was like coming out of it as we were trying to use it. We ended up like switching to a different pedestal.
But don't forget, Dom, we still have the temperature sensors in the connector, in the adapter, and in the vehicle. So if that liquid cooling fails, there are like 4 or 5 other temperature sensors would have to all fail at the same time with the cable in order for you to have a problem. So, talk about redundancy.
Yeah, no, that's a good thing. And so in terms of being certified UL, because again, my initial reaction is, well, who are these UL Johnny come latelys? Who put them in a position? Is it a government organization? Again, me with my little rules cap on. And we do follow the rules in this country very much. And, just a culture and stuff. But I had a look at them, and they've been around since 1894, and industry recognized them. So no, they're not a government organization. And we have a lot of government offices. They're all called off OF something. So, Ofcom, govern communications, and off what to do the water or something. And so we have a lot of those big organizations which we rely on, but there's nothing to sort of say that, no, this isn't an official organization. Nope. They're just like a private company that I could set up tomorrow, but I couldn't because they are, and it would do them more harm than good to license or to certify a technology that then melted. And so it's, I think you can probably rely on UL.
Yeah. And again, they don't always do the testing, Martin. Like in this case, they didn't test this adapter. CSA did, which is the Canadian Standards
Safety
Authority or whatever.
Under that one.
So they call them NLRTs, nationally recognized testing laboratories. ETL is a big one in Europe. So UL, there's UL here too. So UL could have actually done the testing also, but they didn't in this case. That they used CSA. But UL has been the standard to write the regulations or the standards for a lot of electronic devices, as well as doing testing. And like you said, yes, they are just a company. And I've had many people, and I've had comments over the years when I review chargers and so forth. There's people saying, why do we give UL so much stock? I'm a electrical engineer or whatever, and half the things that I see that's UL certified is bogus, and they miss a lot, and and they overreach in a lot. So it's what we have. Okay, from what I understand, they're not perfect, but it's what we have.
Okay. All right. Well, look, I mean, like you said, if I buy something, I tend to presume someone in a position of moral authority at least has done the right thing. And that goes to chargers as well. Like when you turn up at a charger, you at least hope that the company that built them and put them in have done some due diligence, or there'd be some liability there. One of those big networks expanding with good stuff in the ground is Ionna. Nice segue. See what I did there. Now, Tom, they are growing very quickly. They've got big ambitions as well. But look, all charging networks have big ambitions. They told us that when they all went down sort of the SPAC route all those years ago, and many of them went public and made a ton of money, and the share price is in the toilet right now. So, all charging networks have big ambitions, don't they? But Ionna seem to be doing it right. They have some special sauce there. You put a video together talking about how they've doubled in size, they're reducing their pricing, they're adding some perks. Tell us a little bit more about the expansion, Tom, if you would, and where they're growing.
Yeah, so the Ionna's been a little quiet the last couple of months since they, had their kind of coming out party, but they gave us an update, like state of the Ionna address, I guess. Just yesterday, they put out a press release, and I was able to grab it the night before. They were kind enough to send it to me at 10 o'clock at night, so I had to stay up all night making a video, but I won't complain about that. Yes, I will. I'll complain about it. I was up all night making a video. But in any event, and that's why there's a couple, I think, small errors in it, but I was tired. Any event. So, yeah, they doubled the network size in the month of April, which is amazing when you think about it. Well, they only had 6 sites, so it's not that amazing. Now they have 12. They opened up 6 new sites in April. So the snowball's starting to roll. And hopefully it just continues to get bigger and bigger as it goes. The hardest thing is to get moving in this game. And with a lot of industries, in the beginning, there's so much planning and figuring things out. And, for the last year, Ionna's been doing a lot of that, planning, figuring site locations and so forth. But it seems like that snowball is starting to roll now and pick up more snow and get bigger and bigger. So they went from 6 sites to 12 sites. There's 16 more sites with fences up right now under construction. So that's, you're talking months from being open. So now we'll be up to 24 sites. They have 200 more sites under contract. So they've identified, signed contracts for the sites. They're in engineering. They're in, utility interconnect contracts. So that's 200 more sites. So right now they have about 120. That's a good graphic to have up. They have 120 bays open, which is with 12 sites. On average, it's 10 bays per site, which isn't amazing, but it's kind of like the bare minimum there should be is 10 stalls these days. But you can see there's 16 more additional rechargeries and 200 more sites under contract. They had said by the end of 2025 they'd have 1,000 charging bays open, which is 500 chargers. And, I guess, if they're going to average 10, it would be 50 locations. But the fact that they have 200 sites contracted right now means that, in my opinion, I'm going to speculate, I think they'll have more than 100 open by the end of this year. We're just in May. And if the sites are contracted and they're moving at the pace that they've been moving at now, instead of 1,000 bays open by the end of this year, we could be looking at 1,500 to 1,600 bays open by the end of this year. I don't think they'll get all 200 open, but the point I'm making is they're starting to pick up speed and moving fast, and they have been telling us all along we're going to move at Ionna speed, which whatever speed they move at is Ionna speed, I guess. But they were intimating that was going to be fast. So and also, so there's a discount going on now. We talked about this last week. Across the network, they're offering reduced pricing, somewhere from like 32 to 38 cents per kilowatt hour. And they called it like membership pricing without the membership. So they've been quiet about whether they're going to offer memberships through their app. You pay a monthly fee, get reduced pricing. We all assume they would, but they haven't specifically told us for sure that was going to be their policy. So that little graphic that we're giving you membership prices now without a membership, I think that means, yes, there's going to be some sort of membership. And they're also starting down the road of showing us that the founding members of Ionna, the 8 members, it seems like their customers, their EV customers, are going to get special perks, which you would expect. It's their network. I would think they should get special treatment. So they're going to have. They'll be the first ones, the first companies. Although Ford is going to have the plug-in charge with Ionna, but their companies are going to be get priority to get plug-in charge. They're going to have probably, it's going to be up to the individual automaker, but they're going to have discounted credits where, maybe you get 500 kilowatt hour free charging, or who knows, it could be an ongoing thing. You could get, 100 kilowatt hours a month on the Ionna network, let's say. Each automaker will be able to decide what they want to do. So hopefully it won't be any type of unlimited charging. We know how that leads to abuse, misuse, and problems. So, but I'm fine if they're going to give them, a certain amount of kilowatt hour. It seems like when there's a limit on it, people then use it appropriately rather than the unlimited thing is the problem.
Excellent.
Hey, earlier, just slightly off, not still on subject, I guess, because Ionna uses Alpatronics, but
Yes.
Louis Diaz was asking, is Alpatronic liquid cooled? They market 600 amp charging, but I wonder if it's only for short periods based on heat readings. This is the regular cord that we're talking about, different amperage ratings before. We're talking about like an adapters, but in the actual cord, it's a little bit of a different story, right? Those are rated for that's 600 amp charging. No,
They're 600 amp cables. Yeah, they're cool.
Right.
Yeah. Nice. All right.
Just throw that out there. Just
cool. Thank you, Dom.
Yeah.
All right. Let's talk a little bit.
So good prices, but so we got lower prices, but is that including the perks? Is that what that last little bit was?
Yeah, that was the perks from what each automaker announced, and they also talked about, you could tell that Ionna is still like figuring things out, and they've been admitted. They told us that Seth Cutler, the CEO, and Ricardo Stamanti told us at these things. Look, guys, we're still trying to figure out what works, what doesn't work. We want customer input. So they massaged the names, the types of their locations a little bit here. They have these now rechargery beacons, and they mentioned that they were going to have them before, but they, I think they formalized what that would mean. The beacon's going to be 24 plus charging stalls. So at least 12 units, each servicing 2 stalls. And they're going to have, they call it anchor amenities. So that means that it's going to have this is going to be your top shelf, top level charging site that's going to offer the most. It's an Ionna controlled site. I guess it's the sites where they buy an old gas station or whatever, convert it and have a lounge and a cafe inside, Wi-Fi and pet, areas for pets, windshield washing. The Apex site has an air compressor. You can fill your tires. So these are the beacons, the top level. And then there's rechargeries. And then there's the rechargery relays, which the rechargery relays are sites where they just put their chargers on somebody else's, like in a big parking lot, kind of like what Electrify America does now. There's just chargers, but they'll always be very close by other companies managed, restrooms and eating facilities. They won't. Ionna said they'll never put a station in the middle of a desert where there's nothing, no restroom facilities or whatever. You'll at least have, whether in some walking distance to food and restroom facilities. So, and yeah.
That sounds good. Looks good. Let's have a look at one of the comments that just came in from Jan Torre, which is about Norway hitting 97% EV share. I've not seen that actually. I'm just having a look at the comments that are coming in. 97%.
Yeah, I saw that this morning too. Yeah, 97%.
Do we have a link? Dom, I'll throw a link into our private chat there. See if you can find that. That might be some April sales data, unless Jan has got a link that anyone in the comments can throw in. But some breaking news there on the podcast this morning: 97% EV share. Is that plug-in? No, because plug-ins aren't massively popular. Hybrids at the moment.
That's pure electric. Yeah,
that's pure. That's BEV. Wow, Jan Torre, thank you so much for sharing that. That is. In the comments, Norway lagging
again. Some interesting sales data this week, actually. Yeah.
That article from Reuters looks to be about Tesla's April numbers being down.
Not great
again, rather than pure Norway. Maybe Norway's in there, but Tesla are facing it from all angles. They got all the political stuff in the US. The Europeans don't like Mr. Musk, and the Chinese have loads of competition for about half the price. So they got lots of challenges on their hands at Tesla. Didn't know April was quite so bad, but I'll have a look at that story when we're off the air. I think last month, so March, people were using up some plug-in hybrid. either some tax stuff in Norway. Again, if anyone can clarify that. So I think last month in March, as the share of the market, BEVs were like 91 or something. But obviously people got all their plug-in hybrid purchases through before the new tax year or whatever it was. And so April looks like it's been massive for BEVs. Wow, cool.
That's
so
wild.
similar to that in China, BYD just announced their sales too, and they're doing really well. But for the first time in like a year, their pure electrics outsold their plug-in hybrids. So they had this like plug-in hybrid surge for a while because I think the EU makes it easier to import or export.
Yep, avoids the tariffs.
Plug-in hybrids there, and they're not penalized like electric cars have been from China.
Absolutely. All right, let's talk some trucks. Electric trucks this week.
Martin,
go ahead.
If you let me cut in, I just want to grab one question that Weesdog put out while we were talking about Ionna. And this is kind of important. What doesn't work is charging charging 60 to 70 cents per kilowatt hour. It's more expensive than gas, way less convenient. So yeah, this is a problem. I've been noticing the prices, have been creeping up all over. Now, some areas, some networks will give you the time of use, or not time of use. I can't think of the word now, but you pay different prices during different during the day. It adjusts.
Yeah, Tesla do that over here with the superchargers that are open to third parties.
So you can get a good deal on some of them if you charge after midnight. But yesterday I had to drive up to Vermont last minute. It was a kind of something that I had to just take care of. And so I hopped in the Lightning, and I was only at 30% state of charge. I wasn't charged. I said, I'll just charge on the way. So I get on the thruway, and New York thruway, and they're installing these great chargers right along the thruway, which was always a problem. I could never really charge when I drove up to Vermont. But now they're in the new rest stops, and it's managed by a network called Apple Green. So I had to charge a lot. I had to charge up a lot because I had to drive there and back. I paid 64 cents per kilowatt hour. So it was way more than gas would have been if I drove a gas car. So it is a problem, that we're seeing this now. I know these networks, the infrastructure is very expensive. And I'm looking at a business person's point of view. I sunk all this money into the chargers, a couple $100,000 into a site. And, I need to get my money back. So I understand that side of the point, but this doesn't work at that price point. There has to be money, they have to be able to make a profit, but it can't be this much. It can't be 60, 65 cents per kilowatt hour. That's brutal. I mean, it cost me over $100 to drive to Vermont and back, and I could have done it for much less with a gas vehicle. So,
yeah.
Anyway,
well, I'd bite your hand
I
off
saw that
prices.
comment. I just wanted to bring it up.
No, I'd bite your hand off for those prices. We pay with the same but in pence. So that'll be a dollar, maybe slightly more per kilowatt hour on our fast charging network. So, and 20% VAT, I'd bite your hand off for those prices. Honestly, so for me, that's cheap. And for you guys, expensive. But there we go.
It's a lot. I mean, I feel like with these prices, we're going to teach, EV owners to really charge at home, really make it a big point,
Yeah, but that's the people that can.
Right. There's going to be a bunch of people that can't, obviously, but then again, someone like Smiley or Smidge 204 says, no, was it something else? Oh, Affable Alpaca, the best name here, really. Best way to keep pricing low is competition from other CPOs, and as we see, like with Walmart,
Walmart if they do it right, they could really put pressure on everybody else. They have the muscle to do it. They have the money. They have the sites. That's why I was so excited about that. That if they execute this correctly, Walmart, it will be great for all of us, even people that don't use Walmart chargers.
Right. Because that's what competition does, or can do. If it's fair competition. Yeah.
Oh, and by the way, congratulations on 200,000 views on your Walmart video, Tom.
Yeah,
Whoa.
I knew that was going to be big, and that's why I flew down to Texas, rented a Hummer. It was all out of my own pocket. That Walmart didn't pay me to do this. They just said, "We'll give you this exclusive," and I said, "Okay, I'll invest on my end because this is going to be a good news story, and it turned out to be well. Yeah,
that covered your flight and Hummer and everything.
I probably broke even on the video itself.
Yeah,
but but that's not why I do it. There's other reasons and there's other revenue streams.
Yeah, absolutely. But no, congratulations. Huge numbers. Big numbers as well. Big numbers for Volvo trucks this week. Electric trucks have been offered by Volvo since 2019. And since then, 50 countries have got them on the road. The drivers of Volvo electric trucks have driven 170 million kilometers, replacing combustion and emissions. These trucks have reduced CO2 and traffic noise levels. They improve the working environment for the boys and girls that drive them as well. Volvo's current range of electric trucks is all about city and regional distribution as well. You see them most in Germany, Netherlands, US, Norway, and Sweden. They've been doing this for, like I say, 6 years now. Drivers have a much better working environment, much lower levels of noise and vibration. And also, they're just really getting the hang of, how to optimize energy, charging, financing, servicing, all that kind of stuff. So electric trucks is largely a solved problem these days. There's sort of the FL, there's the FE, FM, FMX, electric truck of the year in 2024. So congratulations, 5,000 Volvo electric trucks now on the road. Also in trucking news this week, the Tesla sorry, Dom.
I was just saying, good. Yeah, that's 105 million miles in instead of like 100 and whatever kilometers you mentioned.
That's a lot of emissions off the road.
And I'll digress for a second. One of my favorite commercials of all time was the Volvo truck commercial with Jean-Claude Van Damme, where he did the split between the two. You guys are looking at me like you don't know that commercial.
No, I know that one.
Like historically, is like one of the best commercials ever made, or at least, like they say, the most effective commercials ever made. They estimated that it cost $2 million to make, but it brought in Volvo like $400 million in revenue or something crazy like that. So I can't help but think about that, and that should have been with their electric trucks for being quiet and smooth. They need to come out with version 2 with their electric trucks.
That'd be so cool. The other big.
I just want to mention, somebody's saying Volvo is part of China's hegemony. Actually, Volvo Trucks is a separate company from Volvo Cars. Yeah, it's a different company.
Volvo Trucks is different. Yeah. The head of Volvo Trucks, the CEO there is not the CEO of Volvo Cars, as in Geely and China. And he said this week, Volvo trucks are in the here and now, which was just a phrase that he could have used. But I did feel, maybe that's the way my brain is wired, that when he said Volvo trucks are in the here and now, that there was perhaps just a nod towards those companies that have been talking about electric trucks for a long time, but aren't making them in numbers yet. The Tesla Semi was unveiled in November 2017. They were going to start production in 2019, they told us at the time.
That didn't happen.
It's not 2019, is it? There have been some technical changes over that time. They have delivered 36 trucks, I think, to PepsiCo. Right. Which is good. They've got some stuff on the road, but they should be able to. I mean, they're a massive automotive company. They can hand build stuff and get it on the road. It's been a long time coming. But this week, they talked about not the trucks, but the charging. And that was welcome. It was good to see, because that hopefully means there's more stuff down the pipeline. Dan Priestley is the senior manager of the Tesla truck engineering project. And we'll probably give you the odd slap in the face for being a little bit cheeky just now. But come on, Dan, get off the sofa and do some work. I'm only joking, of course. They were working very hard at Tesla to bring us a great Tesla Semi, I'm sure. And they were talking at the Advanced Clean Transportation Expo, ACT Expo, about that. You can check out Kyle's Out of Spec channel. I think it's on the Bits channel to have a look for all of that. Dom, you've been following the news this week. You're talking about some key takeaways as well. You popped those in our notes. Dom, what jumped out at you on the Tesla charging news this week?
I mean, well, he gave a pretty much pretty comprehensive update. I think, just gave let us know things are actually happening. Well, hopefully, fingers crossed, but we'll see trucks starting to roll out by the end of this year, and Tesla's going to keep those first ones again. They've been making what they call pilot production trucks up to this point, but their factory is now getting really close to finished. They got a 1.7 million square foot factory right by the Gigafactory number 1 in Nevada, and that is just about done. So they're going to be making production spec semis, and there's been a few changes to that. They didn't give us all the changes during the speech, but like there was like some small things like mirrors and just other things to help drivers a bit more. But then there's also other new things, like there's new battery. So it doesn't have the battery that it had before. It's a bit lighter. I think I can't remember he didn't mention the kilowatt hour size of the upgraded one now, so we don't know what it is now. But he did say it was, so they made the trucks more efficient, 7.3% more efficient, so they could reduce the battery size but keep the same kind of range abilities. So, and that, that helps everything, helps bring the price down, and pricing is really kind of what they're aiming for, a very like a diesel equivalent kind of break even point there, like after subsidies at least, or after incentives. So yeah, the new battery he was talking about a little bit. He didn't give us a lot of details. He did say it was made from cells made in the U.S. and they're making the battery packs in the U.S. of course. So at least that's not subject to tariffs right off. So there's a little bit of protection there. I think he was mentioned that to signal that the tariffs are not going to impact that part. Though I have seen articles this week that have said that the tariff situation is affecting Tesla's bottom line with the trucks and some other things. But I think it's still kind of early days, because even the tariff situation, I'm not sure if we'll get to talk about it much later on, but that's, always shifting a little bit. There's, yeah, surprise, the more tariffs, some tariff relief here and there, but it's just, to me, it's more confusing, but we'll put that aside from now. So Tesla has been running their own fleet. They have, besides the ones that they sold to PepsiCo and a few other customers, they have their own fleet, and they've put out like 1 million or 7.9 million miles. So not like 105 million miles like the Volvo trucks have done in operation, but for a small test fleet, it's something. They have 26 trucks with over 100,000 miles on them. I believe it was Smidge 204 was asking earlier, why are we talking about Tesla semis when all of these other manufacturers do have trucks on the road, like Scania is another one. Is that there's a popular channel now, Electric Truck Driver or something? I haven't actually seen this yet, but I've seen people mention it.
Yeah, the German channel. Yeah, it is brilliant.
People, I need to check it out, because people have been mentioning this over and over, and I've seen it here and there. It's like it's going to rival Bjorn for popularity here pretty soon, it seems like. Yeah, so let's see. Yeah, update on the Tesla truck. So MCS outlet, I'm just kind of looking over my notes here. And so, yeah, the cells, they didn't say, they mentioned they were being produced with a partner, so I assume that's Panasonic. So then I also kind of assume that's the 2170s, because I don't think Panasonic's making the big ones yet, right, Tom?
No, not yet.
Right.
No, they talked about making them in Japan, I think, but no.
Mm-hmm.
Right. So, and then they also mentioned that it has a 25 kilowatt ePTO, which is, PTO used to stand for power takeoff, which is not really quite how it's used nowadays. That was like a flywheel in the back of a tractor back in the day. But today, I think they're talking about sending power to the trailer behind them, so they can handle like a refrigerated trailer. It can output energy to that. And then they had some graph up about how running that will impact your range as well. So I believe that's information that would come up on the screen. But I think the bigger piece of the news is, before I get into that, I just want to mention that that comment from Smidge 204, what's so great about the Tesla ones? Well, they're kind of building them to a price. So I think the target is right around the $300,000 mark, where the competitors can be as much as 400,000, and they just have like customers who have them. Like Watt EV took delivery of 2 in December, and they were pretty gushing about them, just saying they're just superior to the Volvo and the Freightliner trucks that it's used. They got more there. They travel. Somebody else was saying they had it on the they used the Tesla Semi and the other ones on the Run on Less event a couple of years ago, and we saw the Tesla Semi able to do 1,000 miles in one day with some mid-shift charging, and that's kind of what you need for over-the-road kind of transport. I mean, at least there's a gentleman from there's like outfit called Zeems. who has some semis, and their initial impression was that they're saying they charge like 3 times faster than the trucks from Freightliner and Volvo, gaining about 400 miles of range in 30 minutes. And yeah, but really, I think it's the price that makes it really exciting. So like $100,000 is like difference is like no joke, and that's before incentives. So I think Tesla's aiming to get it pretty much the same price as a diesel truck before up front, before you start taking in the fuel cost into account, and the fuels for the Teslas at least are like I think they were like 20% of the cost of running a diesel. So I mean that's a huge savings, but if they can keep the over the road charging like cheap enough. So that was the other big thing about this event. They announced they have they're laying out a charging network for trucks, and they have 46 locations kind of started, already going, planned. I think they're only going to open in 2027, early 2027. So that's like a year and a little over a year and a half. So it kind of gives you an idea of how much preparation it takes to really kind of get charging in the ground. Just like, so we just talked about Ionna doing this and doubling. It's kind of a big deal, like especially with for a small company like Ionna, was just kind of starting out, just to get that initial bunch of stuff out there. But yeah, so 46 locations coming, and they'll have more in the future. And then they're using the V4 supercharger kind of platform, changing a few things, putting the MCS. I believe they had a bigger charger, pedestal kind of solution in a while back, but now they're using the smaller V4s for this, and it's a 1.2 megawatt charger. So charger station can have up to like just one pedestal with up to 101.2 megawatts, or they could have like 6 or 8 posts dynamically sharing the juice from so there's that. Yeah, so those 46 locations, they say, should be able to host over 300 megawatt capable posts. So that's a whole bunch of charging just for beginning. It looks like a lot of it was in California and Texas. There's a little bit on the East Coast and a little bit up in the upper Midwest, but really it looks like they're really concentrating on California and that corridor through Texas, basically. Yeah.
Excellent. That sounds good. Is it actual MCS, as in the Charin MCS?
Right, I
don't think so. I think they use their own connector still.
Thing. Yeah.
I mean, did I say? I mean, I've got MC. We'll have this MCS outlet and capable of 1 megawatt charging. That's in my notes. So I believe he said MCS, but I'm not sure if they're using the exact.
I thought they weren't. I thought when I was at the charging summit, I was talking to someone briefly about it. And admittedly, guys, I don't spend a lot of time on semis and the megawatt charging stuff. I'm mostly trying to focus as much as I can on regular customers, retail, personal vehicles. But there were different connectors there. And I remember talking to somebody about it. And I thought their response was, yeah, they're still not on board with the one single standard. Now, Chris says they switched to MCS. I don't think he'd post it without being correct on that. I could have gotten bad information out there, but at the charging summit, there was definitely different megawatt connectors, and that's why it kind of puzzled me a little bit.
No, Charin is still going with that.
You're up to speed, I think. Chris from the Bow Family EV channel.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Okay, interesting. I mean, I'm going to have nothing to do with commercial charging. I would like to see a single connector, just because, and that a global standard. Nice. China probably wouldn't go with it, but I would like to see. Tesla are part of Charin, so there's hopefully every reason why we could just have one connector that can go up to 3 megawatts or whatever it is, the 4.5 megawatts, whatever the limit is now on MCS.
Kyle probably has the answer to this, and he was in the comment section below. So if you're still around, Kyle, chime in.
Yeah, he would know.
Right.
He would know. That's interesting. All right.
Smidge 204 makes another good point here, though. It's, as the electric trucker demonstrates, here's the electric trucker again. Every week, you don't really need super fast charging, and because you're limited by drive and rest times, it isn't the game changer you might think it is. I think it might be a little more strict about drive times and things in Europe than the US.
Oh, yeah, way more. Yeah,
But
you can't be some sort of hero and just chug it out for 16 hours non-stop and get the journey done. No, it's really specific
right,
rules,
you
just
can't
to
do
do
that
with
now either, really.
fatigue and safety and being in charge of a massive vehicle and not being tired and trying to do huge distances. So there's strict rules on your tacho, and you have to have a clear record of when you've driven, when you can't even start the. I think you can start the engine if you want to run power and whatnot, but you certainly can't move the truck, within the parking lot, 100 meters down there. You can't move your truck. You're in rest time. You've got to, and that's, if you ask me, it's a good thing. As long as the rules are the same for everybody and the entire haulage industry is playing by those rules, it's good for drivers. It's good for the industry. It's good for the safety of people who are in their cars amongst a bunch of trucks on the road. There's not going to be one guy who's trying to be a hero and been awake 24 hours. So it's a good idea. But that channel is called Electro. The German channel's Electro Trucker, and the English version is called Electric Truck. It's on YouTube, and the guy is awesome. And he's just charging often at public charging stations, having to unhitch the trailer, park sympathetically, try and stretch the cable out. But he is an early adopter. He's going through some hoops that a lot of people won't want to do. They'll want to go to a pull through. They don't want to unhitch, and they'll want to. He is doing some stuff which he goes, this isn't a problem, but some people might consider it a problem. But he's doing it absolutely on regular charging infrastructure on mainland Europe, and it's a fascinating channel. So go and subscribe and watch it, and it's very interesting. So Simon Matthew says the speed is way lower. Probably
in Europe.
I think it's 56 miles an hour, probably 100 kph, maybe. I don't know.
It used to be like they were pretty strict about that back when I was on the road a lot. I see like the Walmart trucks and things going like 70 miles an hour or 69 miles an hour. And pretty much now it seems like they're going faster, especially if you're out west where you can see like semi trucks going like 80, 85 miles an hour. It's kind of blows my mind a bit. But in my mind's eye, the American trucking industry is pretty much like Convoy from 1978 with Chris Christopherson. It's one of the greatest movies of all time ever made. So 10-4 Rubber Ducky. Let's move on, and I'm sure that's exactly what it's like. Let's have some fun and talk about what Tesla would be like without its very high-profile CEO in charge anymore. A report came out this week that said Tesla was approaching agencies, the kind of people who find CEOs, to find a new CEO. And whilst that was an interesting story, it didn't particularly raise my eyebrows. But of course, the world sort of stopped. It broke the internet. Well, why wouldn't Tesla be looking for a new CEO? Because there's lots of roles that Elon Musk can do. Maybe it does need a CEO, but no one seemed to say that. Anyway, what the presumption was that he would leave the company, which is ridiculous because he owns too much of it. He's not leaving Tesla. The Wall Street Journal had the story saying that the Tesla board was looking for a replacement for Elon Musk. But I guess what the story was the board were approaching those agencies that find things like CEOs and high-level managers. And why, is this part of their job really, in terms of replacement and succession planning? Why wouldn't they be doing that? It was kind of a non-story to me, but everybody else got very frothy about it. The board chair, Robin Denham, she denied the report. Elon Musk said that it was a lie, but as has happened so many times over the years, Elon Musk accuses the press of lying. Billionaires hate to be analyzed, and so the press do that. Journalists do that. Good journalists ask questions to powerful people, and powerful people hate it. And he's always calling the press liars. And times over the years, like when Reuters said that he had called time on the cheap so-called Model 2, Model A project, whatever that was, E41 project or whatever it was, and he said, "This is a lie," and it turned out to be true. And so, he has form in calling the media liars. Inside EVs shared parts of the Wall Street Journal report, saying the board members reached out to executive search firms to work on a formal process for finding a CEO of Tesla. Around the time Tesla's board met with Elon Musk, says the report, to ask him to spend more time with Tesla. It's worth noting that during the earnings call, Elon Musk said he would devote more time to Tesla and spend 1 or 2 days a week still working in Doge.
after saving, I don't know, the US government $1 million. And then somebody went, that's not that much money, make it bigger. 100 trillion bazillion dollars. And so he got, I've done my job here in 100 days. And so he's going back to Tesla. Inside EVs pointed out that Wall Street Journal said that whether Tesla is still looking for a replacement is unknown. Again, my opinion is, well, why wouldn't they be on the lookout for a CEO? The other thing is the chairman of the board, Robin Denham, who's been there since 2018 or about 2019. It was in 2018 that Elon Musk tweeted funding secured, and the SEC said, you can't say that if it's not true. And he was like, what's the problem with lying? And so then they made him get a chair because he was chairman of Tesla. And so they made Tesla have a chair. So that's where Robin Denham came in. Electrek reported this week that her contract is up in 12 months, shortly after he did that really weird online town hall staff meeting that was put online where he begged the staff not to sell their shares. Turns out that she has pretty much sold all her shares. So she's got a year left. She could be looking at the exit. And why wouldn't he just become chairman again? And there would be a new CEO. Like, that is just, to me, that seems normal, but nobody else saw it that way. They were like, well, it must mean Elon's leaving the company. So what could it mean then? I mean, what would Tesla look like without Elon Musk? Or maybe he's just looking to move on to different things. You know, what would Tesla be like with a full-time, at least 5 days a week CEO? Tom, he has done more than anyone to raise the profile of electric vehicles, good or bad, over the years. I guess people would find it hard to imagine, Tom, a Tesla without an Elon Musk. He owns almost 20% of the company. If his big old pay package, which has been denied twice now by judges, but if he ever gets that, he'll own 22% of the company. Hard to imagine a Tesla without Musk. But, at some point, someone's got to get, crack on and run that company. I guess. Tom, what would a Tesla without Musk look like to you?
So I think that it's hard to imagine. It's hard for me to imagine because he's such a big face and part of the company. And I think, for years, he was a huge part of the company's success. Now, I know people just put their faith in Elon. He wasn't out there designing the vehicles and as much as, I think he gives that impression that he's the brains behind Tesla's powertrains and so forth. That's not the case. I mean, I'm sure he sat in on all the high-level meetings with engineers, and they explained to him what they're doing, and he absorbed that. But he wasn't the reason why the vehicles were as good as they were or weren't as good as they were. Maybe pushing people and driving people to do better, which he seems to be good at, whether it's through positive reinforcement or negative reinforcement. He seems to get the most out of his employees, which is a good thing, particularly if you're a shareholder. It might not be a good thing if you're working there and there's a whip on your back 24/7. And he's like, well, look, I'm sleeping at the warehouse. You sleep here too. But it's hard to imagine Tesla without him. And I don't think that's going to happen, Martin. I do think that there was some truth to what was going on here. I don't think credible reporting that typically we get out of Wall Street Journal. I don't think that they would have written something like this if they didn't have some sort of inside information. But it could have been, that a couple board members talked to some of their friends and said, look, we have to figure out how to do this because the company is tanking right now. If he continues down this path of, just being so heavily involved in Doge and the government, 55 to 60% of the country, don't like him at this point, and he's bringing the country down. What could we possibly do? Is there anything that we can do? Maybe we could, talk about what a replacement would look like, and and then maybe he, once he caught wind of that, said, this isn't going to happen. I don't believe he would willingly step down, and if he did, it wouldn't be now, because it would be viewed as they pushed him out because he damaged the company so badly, which he has in the past few months. It's irrefutable that he's extremely damaged the company. As if you're going to give him credit for bringing the company to where it is, and I do, Tesla wouldn't be Tesla without Elon. You have to also say, okay, in the last 4 months, he's also been a terrible drag on the company. So I think if for Elon to step down or to pass the torch, it has to be on good times when everything is good. I think his ego is too big for him to allow someone to replace him now, because it will look like he was pushed out of the company that he built. I could see Elon moving on, when Tesla's in a good place and everything is going well, and he says, well, I've done everything I could. I've brought them as far as I could. The company's in a great place. Now I'm going to take a lesser role as an advisor and spend more time on my AI and my brain chips and, eliminating government waste, whatever, but I can't see that happening now, Martin. I really can't, because it would really be viewed as his company pushed him out. And, he has a heavy hand on that board. They're not pushing him out. Somebody may have mentioned to him, Elon, this is really bad. Is there anything that we can do to, help the company? Kind of said to him, would you, without directly saying it, but I can't. I'd be shocked if he said, okay, yeah, you can replace me.
Yeah, I can't see the board making moves to. Yeah, this whole situation is a little bit weird. I think I have an idea of what's going on here, but I'm not privy to what happens in the Tesla boardroom at all. So, but I can't really see like the board doing stuff behind Elon's back, stuff that he's not aware of. So I kind of feel like maybe he initiated something at one point, or he said something, or expressed some interest in or thoughts about moving on or doing something, and then someone made some calls, and that got out because it had multiple. I mean, WSJ, Wall Street Journal, had multiple sources. They're not going to do this, publish this on a single source. So I think some feelers were put out, and apparently it was narrowed down to like one company, a search company, and then I think there was a conversation, and it ended right. Elon's made okay. I'm not going. I'm going to come back and spend more time at Tesla and do the work there. So I think like the search started, then ended, and so that's not ongoing. And I think that's what Musk is denying. He's trying to say, and Robin Denholm, the chair of the board, they're saying that there's no search going on for a replacement now, and that's probably the truth, right?
Yeah, I mean, I would, if I was Tesla, would have said that we are always ensuring that there is a succession plan should he be hit by a bus or whatever. If you don't know who the next CEO, COO, CFO, chairperson is, she's got a year left on her contract, maybe renewed, might not. She might want to do something else back in Australia. Then all businesses should have a succession plan, unless you're a sole trader where you're Joe's Plumbing and you're Joe, and if you ain't plumbing, then there's no Joe's Plumbing. But if I'm a shareholder in Tesla and I'm not, I'd really want them to know who the next CEO is going to be. If Elon Musk, there's crazies out there, like he's got loads of security. People have tried to take his life. It's horrible when you're that famous and rich and, divisive. And also we saw what happened to Trump at that event as well. He was so lucky. And you think, I would want Tesla to at least have an idea, at least. But the idea that they're doing it behind his back is ridiculous. Like on the board is his brother, Kimball. Like the idea the board are all in a cupboard being like, let's get Elon out of here. Like, it's ridiculous. It's his mates. It's James Murdoch. It's Kimball. There's no way that the board would do it behind his back in a million, as Tom says. But what's really interesting is whether Tesla could have him as like an executive chairman that can show up on earnings calls, that can take the credit for inventing everything, put his name on the patent applications and stuff, but have a CEO, have a COO, because there's so many. We talked about Dan Priestley earlier, the Semi project person. He's very high profile, but apart from him, there's a bunch of very high profile people in the last 12 to 24 months at Tesla who you could have been, they were being teed up like a Drew Baglino type, that have all left. Like Tesla are having they're a massive company and people leave. Let's not over egg the pudding. But they've lost a lot of very important senior people at that level that could have been stepping up.
Agreed. Let me ask you a question. Is there any other CEO that any of us know of for any other company that could weather this? That would, if they did what Elon has done and damage the brand as badly as they had, and have literally more than 50% of your customers saying, I wish I hadn't bought this car now because I'm embarrassed to drive it. I mean, this is happening. I hear this. I get comments all the time. I think I mentioned on the podcast last week that when I was at my local Ford dealership, there's a Cybertruck at the dealership, and the guy traded it in and got a Lightning. He said, because I'm just sick of having people yell at me and call me Nazi as I'm driving down the road, which is wrong. You shouldn't do that. But that guy didn't do anything wrong. But think that is directly because of Elon. So could any other CEO have survived that in any other company in the world? I can't imagine that without being fired immediately.
Martin Winterkorn, CEO of Volkswagen, the minute Dieselgate became public, went immediately. Yeah. Like there was no kind of, we were just sort of fudging some numbers here with the tests. No, he went straight away. And then, there was other senior management that went through the legal system at Volkswagen. But no, the CEO went immediately. What's interesting is who could take that company on, who could repair some of the brand damage that's been done, and what kind of place it could be. I saw in the comments people talked about Microsoft survived Bill Gates leaving. Yeah, but don't forget, Bill Gates left in 2000, and then Steve Ballmer took over for like 14 or 15 years and still presided over a very Bill Gatesy type of Microsoft, which was Windows and Office and the stuff that I've read about it, like bro culture tech guys. And it wasn't until, over 10 years ago that Satya Nadella came in and was like, let's think about cloud. Let's think about AI. Let's think about a new Microsoft. And that company's massively flourished under a new CEO. But there was a period of time after Bill Gates, who was obviously high profile for being Microsoft, where the company kind of stayed in its lane. And I think whoever the next CEO would not be the anti-Musk. He wouldn't be like, let's reinvent Tesla. It would be in Musk's footsteps on the same page, I think, anyway.
Yeah. But it's just it's amazing how there's even Steve Jobs in his heyday, even when he was as popular as he was and he saved Apple and everything. If you can replace the exact situation and have him do, what's going on now, Apple would have kicked him out. 100%. I don't think anybody could do what damage the brand as much as Elon has. And still, none of us even think there's a chance that the board will replace him. It's very unique.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, but I do think there's something going on there besides the CEO position. Like the board, Robin Denholm has pretty much liquidated all her shares. I kind of feel like she's ready to jump ship and move on. I don't know if she'll last until the shareholders meeting or not, but I feel like when that comes around, when is that, in June usually?
Well, she's made hundreds of millions, and so done her job.
Yeah, she made over $600 million off of it, off her shares over this time, I believe.
So, and they've not really been a very high profile board, or chair, so they don't need to be. Just crack on. They're making their money, so that's changed. That's changed her family tree, right? So whatever happens next. So that's interesting. All right, I like the good debate. I like that, and I don't know. We'll see where it ends up. All companies are bigger than just one person,
right?
Apart from Joe's Plumbing. We'll come back to good old Joe doing the plumbing.
Joe and Sons,
Joe and Sons,
or daughters,
or Joe and daughters. Absolutely. There were some other bits of news kicking around this week.
Not a whole lot this week. It's been a quiet week, man.
Amount. There was. If you don't work in the automotive industry, what could be seen as an amusing story, if you work in the automotive industry, this is the worst. This is I'm not making light of it. But Trump added a bunch of tariffs, 25% on cars not made in the US, then added some more and said, you will all just pay tariffs there for everyone. You win a tariff. You win a tariff. Everyone gets a tariff. And then this week said, maybe I was, he didn't say I was wrong. Maybe we won't do some of them on the parts that go inside the cars. And the automotive industry went, thanks for that. That's good news. And the share price still went up. The 25% tariff is still there, by the way. Try running a car company when every day you wake up to see what's our business doing today? It must be horrible. You can't run a business. You can't run a country like it. But there we go. So they have reduced, the US has reduced some of the automotive parts tariffs. I understand. I get confused.
Right.
But there we go.
And I think they're going to keep them from stacking as well. So if you pay,
it crosses the border
tariff on this metal, then you don't have to pay this other tariff. It sounds like super complicated. Like it's just on my mind. Like I'm thinking this, whoever has to sort all this kind of stuff out, like in the back office, the accounting office, man, their heads are exploding. like man. Oh, your mic's off. You're muted there, Tom.
No,
you muted Tom.
Sorry, mate. You muted.
Sorry.
There you go.
Sorry, guys. Yeah, the flip-flopping is just insane.
It's crazy. I mean, if you work in the automotive industry, it must be horrible.
It must be absolutely horrible. It's worse than just putting in a number and saying, look, guys, we're never going to change it. Deal with it. This is what you have to deal with. This constant, every week, it's, well, maybe we'll do this, maybe we'll do that. You know, it's utter chaos. And that's like the last thing that a huge industry that's so complex. The automobile industry is probably the most complex, like, supply chain industry in the world. I know there's a lot of huge industries, but they don't know what to do from day to day. And I just believe that in the end, we're not going to have, at least for the automobile industry, I think that they're going to beat the Trump administration down. The industry will, to the point where they reduce the tariffs as much as possible for the auto industry, because there'll be a substantial job loss. And this administration, well, all administrations talk about jobs, but this is something that they seem to be so it's front and center. Well, immigration and jobs, and this is so counterproductive for the job end of it. There's no way around it. It will cost jobs, at least in the short term. It could create more jobs in the long term, but that's years down the road. Well after the Trump second administration ends, if it ends, the impact to jobs won't happen for at least 4 or 5 years. So it would look terribly negative on him if the tariffs in their current form were kept. They're not going to. I think there's enough people that are going to get to his ear and say, you're going to crater the automobile industry in the U.S. at a critical time when there's such a pivot in the industry that this could be, you might kneecap them enough so that's it. It's over. By the middle of the next decade, we don't have an automobile industry anymore. So we'll see.
I mean, we're struggling to keep up, like, technologically with, China's just going gangbusters with the technology, and man, it's just a whole new world out there.
You say China's going gangbusters. I'm not disagreeing with you. But the thing that no one talks about in this whole, we're going to have tariffs. No, we won't. We need to beat China. How are we going to do that? Well, anything you buy on Amazon, there's going to be 125% tariff now. Since the 1950s, China has had a 5-year plan, and they don't waver from it every 5 years. And I'm not defending China in the top-down approach, and I wouldn't want to live there myself. I'm just pointing out, they go, right, here's the priority. And in 2001, they set electric vehicle and battery technology as a national priority in 2001. And in 2001, China said to all its regions and areas, you will now, again, I'm not defending China, just the way the country's run, new priority. So it's a bit like, right, here we go. Here's the rules, EVs. And that's 25 years ago. And so in whole areas of cities, they built not just a factory, but they built whole industrial parks, and each area gave that to maybe a car maker. So maybe you'll get BYD Park or Neo Park. All the factories are making all the supply bits that go into those vehicles, and each of the regions in China have adopted their own one. So Neo's in a certain area, BYD's in a certain area, and everyone in that area works in the supply chain, whether you like that or not. I'm just pointing out, this is the way China did it. And then so you do that, and then you add 25 years to it of doing the same thing every single day, every single month, every single year, and now you get what China's producing and the kind of battery technology. And if you want to truly say, oh, crikey, they took a bit of a head start, how do we do it? The way to do it is not every morning wake up being like, well, what executive order has been signed today? Like, that is the opposite of how to do it. But what do I know? I'm an idiot podcaster, not an economist, so ignore everything I've said.
Here's a little stat from Maki Vlog, who were with us last week. I saw a stat that China's gov has invested 340 billion in their EV companies. Imagine if we invested in our EV companies like that. Well, we have the private, free market kind of to fill that role, really, to some extent. Though there is, of course, I think a role for government as well in encouraging, private business. Not to get in a whole philosophical discussion, communism, versus free markets and stuff, but yeah, there are two different approaches.
But we've invested. I mean, with the EV tax credit, that's they just have a different approach over there. They make it very easy for these new energy companies to start. At least they used to. Not anymore. They've reduced some of their programs. But basically, I mean, if you wanted to build a factory to build electric cars, if you showed competency to be able to do that, well, okay, there's a 500-acre plot over there. You can build on that, or we'll build it for you. We'll give you the funding for it. Build your factory, and we'll give you a long-term loan at 0.5% interest or something, or no interest, and or don't even worry about paying it back. So that they really made it easy for all these startups to come and get in the game. And then they let them all beat each other down. And what we're seeing now is coalescing and from hundreds and hundreds of new energy companies, it's reducing. And they're getting the companies that are strong, that are making good products. And, it's a way to do it. We don't do things differently here, but that's how they do things there.
It's like they did it backwards from us. We use like the market to kind of get money for investment with an idea and then build it up from there. So they kind of use the government money to get everything going, but now they're relying on the free market to weed out the weak ones and consolidate the market. And it's really kind of interesting. It's really dynamic and market. Like some companies you think are going to be gangbusters, and then they don't really show up in the sales reports, way down. And then these companies you're not really familiar with, they're all of a sudden they're selling more than just about anybody.
Yeah. It's something how a company can come out of nowhere in China and just build like a tremendous vehicle, quality and everything. Cars in China were junk 10 years ago. Honestly, they were garbage. The quality was terrible. That's why they never were global brands. You couldn't sell a lot of Chinese car in Europe or the US. No one would want them because they fell apart. But they what they've done there in the last decade is amazing. And
even the last like 4 years even. But you're speaking of the just coming out of nowhere, that's like, I think the prime example of that is the Xiaomi, which is a goods company, like toothbrushes and rice makers. But they hooked up with I think they were partnered with GAC, which is a big state automaker, and boom, they just had their first down month, and they have one product still, just the SU7. They've had their first down month, like 4%, I think, down in sales, but they sold like 135,000 or so, like the first year, which is mind-boggling. Those are crazy numbers.
It is an example of thinking ahead. People pointing out in the comments of long-term planning. Well, the management at Rivian have been thinking ahead for a long time, actually, for many, many months. They've been stockpiling batteries, or as it was reported this week, a secret stash of batteries, which does somewhat sound like they've been hiding some sweets under their bed from their parents. However, I'm not sure it's a secret stash, but it is certainly thinking ahead and supply chains and adding what they needed to. And this is really smart thinking from Rivian management. They started shipping extra LFP cells from Chinese company Gotion last year, and working with Samsung SDI to ship a large amount of lithium-ion, nickel, manganese, cobalt, NMC batteries to the US as well. So again, anything that will avoid tariffs that are then coming in already in the US and already purchased and through the books and stuff like that. So a great example of forward planning. So well on Rivian with that. That should smooth, at least a little bit, smooth things out, which is awesome. Before we go, Hyundai's Ioniq 9 got some pricing today. 2026 Hyundai Ioniq 9 starting at $60,555. So those pricing and specs are now official, as Inside EV say the American-made three-row electric vehicle is eligible for the $7,500 federal tax credit when buying with cash. Thank you, Don, for not scrolling so I could read that off the screen.
American made, so that means native NACS. So supercharging, Tesla supercharging right from the get-go.
Yes.
This is a pretty good deal. And that's before it's still eligible for the federal incentive, $7,500 off of that. So that's not bad. I like this thing. Even I think significantly more than the EV9. I like the EV9, but I really like this a lot more.
Yeah.
It's basically the same thing, but yeah.
That's nice.
It looks so good.
In fact, you were talking about federal tax credit sticking around last week. If you haven't seen or heard last week's podcast, and it's all in the archive, all of our shows that we've done, Tom was talking about how it's likely that they'll use the budget process maybe in the fall to get rid of that. Dom and I were chatting in the week, and we noticed an interview with Slate. That is the sort of base model truck that you can customize a lot. We talked about a lot last week. Interview with Slate CEO about the whole sort of made in America for America thing, and she was saying, we've gone with the battery technology that will be made in America, so we get the federal tax credit. And I thought that was an interesting little addition to our story, because the truck is out next year. So when she says, we went with NMC packs, not LFP, so that they're made in America and we get the tax credit, either Slate have had some really bad advice from their political consultants, or she knows that and was just being a bit naughty, because it won't be around next year when it goes. But I guess she has to say what the current playing field is, which is there is one.
Right.
So but perhaps being a bit naughty, suggesting that it'll be around when the Slate truck arrives.
Exactly. Well, it's here now, so they don't want to speculate on what might happen in the future. So it makes the truck sound a lot better. $7,500 off of a $26,000 truck makes a much bigger impact than $7,500 off of a $80,000 SUV. So it's both important, but you look at the percentage. So we haven't talked at all about Congress's proposal for the $250 federal EV tax.
Yeah, I looked at that this week and thought, should we talk about it? But it's a proposal which is a lot of money compared to what you would have spent on gas tax.
And Martin, I don't know if you're familiar with this, but many states already have state EV taxes. So for instance, here in New Jersey, we started it last year, $250 a year, and it goes up $10 each year until 2028 when it's $290 a year. So think about this. I own 4 EVs now, right? I'm very lucky. I have 4 electric vehicles. I paid $200 right now. It's in the second year, so it's $260 a year for my EVs. So I already pay what's that? $1,040. If this comes into effect, that's another $1,000. And in 2 more years, when it's $290, so I'll be paying like $2,500 a year in tax just to own my cars.
Right.
No.
It's a punitive thing. It certainly is, in my opinion. This isn't, what I love about, politicians, how they can talk out of both sides of their mouth. And typically, the Republicans have always talked about states' rights. And that's one of the reasons why they championed the end of abortion. The killing Roe v. Wade, a few years back. And it was because of the state should decide what's right for their citizens, and the same thing with the tax. The states should decide what taxes should be applied to what vehicles you could even sell. Now they're talking about trying to kill the California's zero emission vehicle goal in 2035 or whatever, so now the government wants to tell the state which, how to run their clean air programs. It's funny how politicians talk out of both sides of their mouth. On one issue, they could say, government should stay out of, federal government should stay out of most business. The state should decide which, what they want. So It's purely, a punitive measure, in my opinion, more than a way to collect money. The states collect most of the gasoline tax as it is. If the states have a shortfall in their road taxes, which they all do, they're all running at a negative. The amount of tax we collect on gasoline here doesn't nearly cover the cost of our infrastructure and everything. It's why our gas is so cheap, Martin, and yours is so expensive. Your
expensive.
Your taxes on your fuel actually covers the cost to keep the roads in good shape. Ours is so shortfall. So now what is going to happen is, especially if something like this goes through, EV owners are going to end up paying much more for road tax and than their gasoline counterparts are going to. Much more. I mean, I'll think about it, $2,500 a year in road tax. You know how much gas I'd have to buy to pay $2,500 in gas tax?
Yeah.
I mean, I'd probably have to drive like 100,000 miles that year.
You never stop driving.
So I think it was Inside EVs, and sorry if it was Electrek, or I think it was Inside EVs, ran the numbers on it and ran the numbers on the average mileage of the average American, and they worked out that you probably pay like $116 in gas tax per year. So if you absolutely wanted to add money to the infrastructure fund, and I understand that the US has some sort of trust fund that is reasonably ring fenced for fixing the roads and building bridges and whatnot, that isn't an exceptional, that this is where the taxes go. That if you absolutely had to, you should probably work it out on an adjusted basis of what's the average American doing. And maybe it's $116 a year, and you could probably make an argument at a stretch that EVs should pay into the fund. So $250 is like just nowhere near it.
$100 would be reasonable.
It's a massive punishment.
But the best thing would be pay by mile. All the vehicles should all just pay by mile, regardless of what fuel you purchase. Eliminate the gas tax completely, and everybody pays by mile. And maybe have 2 or 3 different categories depending on your vehicle weight. If you have a super light vehicle, because the heavier the vehicle, the more wear and tear on the roads. But you can't make it too complicated. Something like a pivot of if it's under 5,000 pounds, if it's over 5,000 pounds. There's two different price categories, and we all pay by the mile. But now you get into the fact of government monitoring how many miles you drive, and people don't like that. They don't want, it's none of your business how far I drive. Meanwhile, now a lot of insurance companies are also asking you for your mileage, because the more you drive, the more likely you are to have an accident and have a claim. But pay by mile for everybody should be the way we go. But the funny thing is, I've never even heard of any attempt to have that. Maybe it's happened and I just missed it, but I've never heard of any attempt of states or Congress to institute something like that. Now that we have these different fuel sources of fuel for vehicles, what if hydrogen comes into effect? How do we make it fair for everybody? Pay by mile. We all pay the same rate. Yeah. You don't have to worry about equaling it out. Like we're having to, what would be the amount of electricity to pay for the amount of gas tax? Just pay by mile. We all pay by mile. We all pay the same. Nobody gets robbed.
And that
you go in.
That $250 a year is only for individuals. So the actual vehicles that are heavier, that do 100,000 miles a year, so the big heavy trucks and delivery vans in this proposal would be exempted from that. Mm-hmm. But the regular person that drives, I don't know, it's a second or third car that might do a couple of thousand miles a year at the weekend, or as a leisure car, or a thing you take to the cabin at the weekends or something, that would be taxed massively. And yet the vehicle's doing all the damage to the roads, and I'm not say Republicans, but the people in charge now saying, well, we've got to make it fair. Who's going to pay for the roads? Well, the vehicle's doing all the damage and using the roads for free to make money as traders and haulage companies. They'd be exempted from this. So that is just not fair to everyday hardworking people. There you go. That's
Someone's asking me what I pay here in Florida. I think I pay like $75 around that area for a car.
So all states have an EV tax? I didn't know this.
I mean, but for an EV, there's not an EV tax. It's just a regular registration. And that varies by state as well. Like out in Colorado, they pay crazy money for registration every year. like ridiculous.
Is it an annual fee as well? You got to go re-register your car every year.
Right. So this is when. So if we did like the by mile, tax by mile. So I just in my mind, I'm thinking a system where instead of having, because people say there's privacy concerns, they don't want to have the government monitoring where their car is traveling to all the time, which I understand. So just when you go to re-register your car every year, just show up at the office or at the and then you give them your odometer readings, and maybe they can do spot checks here and there to make sure that all that's kosher, or have licensed garages to check your odometer reading to give you
That's what we have. We have registered garages. They inspect your vehicle once a year,
right?
And if it's got suspension problems, they'll say you can't drive it until you get it fixed. So we have an annual inspection.
A lot of states and provinces have that as well.
Yeah,
Florida doesn't.
Just add it to that.
You can drive whatever you want down here.
Yeah, that's safe.
And there's no annual inspection here, but there could be.
That's a good place to end it. I like it. That's a good. Thank you, Tom, for bringing that up. That's a good discussion. The comment sections loved it, and so, but keep it going. Keep it going in the comment section. If you're not watching us live on a Friday morning, US time, or Friday afternoon here in Europe, then you can join us live. We're here every Friday. We'd love to see you in the comments. We love hanging out with you guys. Awesome. And but if you're not around, then the comment section of YouTube, or if you're getting us in your ears because you are a podcast audio listener, then probably the best place to join in the conversation is still the YouTube channel, even if you don't use that. Leave a comment, and we love it. And we reply to as much. If you ask us a question, we'll reply. All of us are on the channel, so we'll try and write our name if one of us writes a reply, so you know who it's from. But we'll jump in and join you on there. If you are watching the YouTube version, make sure you hit the thumbs up and hit subscribe, and I'm sure you already do on Dom's and Tom's channel. Maybe you're one of the 200,000 people watched Tom's Walmart video in the last week, and if you haven't watched it, well, you're the only one. Go and watch it now. Thank you very much for watching and listening as always, and we will see you, if not for a midweek special, then at the same time next week. One more thing. Hey Dom, say ciao.
Ciao.